Well, I'm continuing our Royal Family Karmic Challenges series, and today we're going to be looking at the astrology chart of King Charles to get an idea of some of the astrological challenges that King Charles faces in his life and will face in the future. We're going to be talking specifically about the Saturn karma, which is a lifelong karma. It tends to reduce as you get older, especially when you get over the age of 40, but it's always there in the background. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get all of my readings. By the way, I practice sidereal Vedic astrology, which is the astrology from ancient India. So your sign may be different using this method. So you want to be sure to go to the appropriate calculator if you're looking for that online. My goal is 10,000 subscribers. I just recently hit 2,500 subs. So thank you very much to everyone. If you're interested in a private reading, check for details down below. I'm doing a holiday discount, and it's the biggest discount I've ever done. So make sure you check that out. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about King Charles astrology chart. And let me pull that up for you. Quick disclaimer while we're pulling this up. This reading is for entertainment purposes only. All these statements about King Charles, they're all allegedlys, and we're just speculating as to the astrological energies. Okay, so when we're looking at Saturn karma, and this is something that you all can look in your own personal charts, remember Saturn is going to be our heavy karma. Okay, heavy karma. And it tends to be karmic debts from past lives. So it's the karmic debts we owe. It's debts, okay? So wherever Saturn is in your chart, it tends to take energy from you. It tends to be somewhat of a black hole of it's just absorbing this energy. You keep giving, 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 and it just ends up just being this, very tiresome type of situation. Let me clean that up. So when we're looking at your heavy karma or King Charles's heavy karma, we're going to look at the fact that Saturn is in the second house of Leo. So we're going to analyze that, the house it's in. And then we're going to look at the house, three houses from itself. So let me number these houses just so you all can figure it out. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So when you're doing this house method, you want to actually count the house that Saturn's in first. So you're going to count three houses from Saturn. That's going to be your first aspect. You're going to count 7 houses from Saturn. That's going to be the second aspect. And then you're going to count 10 houses from Saturn. And that's going to be the third aspect there. So all of those 4 houses are being influenced with King Charles. So we look at the second house, the fourth house, the eighth house, and the 11th house here. So those are all, areas of life that are going to be negatively impacted by Saturn. And that's with all of you. You can look at that in your chart. Let's clean up the chart here. We're also going to pull up some slides so you can really know what that means. So let's take a look at that. What does it mean when Saturn's in the second house of Leo? What does that mean? What does it mean aspecting the fourth house, the eighth house, the 11th house? So let's talk about that because we get a lot of information out of that. And let's pull this up. So the fact that Saturn is in the second house of Leo, I did want to talk about that for a second because I think that it was interesting in the crown, and I know a lot of my viewers have told me that the crown is not accurate whatsoever, but I'm going to talk about it anyways for a moment. In the crown, they kind of portray King Charles as he's almost like this up and coming figure. He almost wants to replace the queen. I remember there's one part in the crown where he's even suggesting that maybe he should be king instead of the queen being queen at the time. And so they kind of portray him in that negative light. But when I look at the astrology chart, I tend not to agree with that because when Saturn's in the sign of Leo, it's somebody that's more forced into fame. It's not really somebody who wants fame. So the crown makes it look like he's someone that's really pursuing fame, where the chart is showing no, it's actually being more forced on him. So I find that to be at odds with what was shown in the crown. So there's forced fame. Okay. In fact, a lot of times with Saturn in the second house, it tends to be someone who's more humble and actually doesn't really want the spotlight as much. Okay. Also, the second house, let's talk about what the karma of the second house. The second house has a lot of different meanings. So it can represent your family of origin, the people that you grew up with. So your mother, your father, your stepmother, your stepfather, your brothers, your sisters, it kind of includes all of that family dynamic. It also includes how you save your money, your family wealth. It includes your values. So the belief systems that your family passes on to you is the second house. Your speech and even things like your self-worth are contained in the second house. So stifled by tradition, with the astrology chart, it does show that at least from King Charles's point of view, remember the chart represents his point of view. It's going to show that he might have felt stifled by the traditions. So it might have felt like it was blocking him in some sort of way. And so maybe that was kind of true with the crown, was it showed King Charles or portrayed him as somewhat innovative. So he might have actually felt like there was a lot of aspects of the royal family that needed some sort of innovation or modernization. That is very true because Saturn shows that he feels that if he keeps going the way things are, it's not going to work out. And in fact, maybe he's actually had experiences where he realizes the old value system isn't really working in the modern world. It tends to make somebody very frugal in money matters. So King Charles might be very frugal. I think they did show that in the crown that he tended to want to save money in different ways. That would actually be true. So it'd be somebody who wants to save more money. They want to really restrict the finances or it restrict the expenditures and so forth so that they can try to conserve their resources. Now, the second house actually can represent a second marriage, and we do see that he was indeed married second house 2 times. So a lot of times if somebody has planets in the second house, it can indicate more than one marriage within the lifetime. Now it's interesting because when Saturn is in the second house, it represents there's a second marriage, but there's some sort of delay or some sort of block there. And of course, we see how that happened. So he ended up, Princess Diana and formerly Prince Charles, they ended up separating. And then, they ended up getting divorced. There was a delay there. It was a long time before he actually got married to now Queen Camilla. And so there was a lot of that Saturn represents like the red tape or societal approval, those kind of things. It took a while for that to happen. But when Saturn's in the second house, it shows that the marriage might actually have a lot of endurance to it. So there has a lot of enduring qualities to it. Now, interestingly enough, the self-worth may have been negatively affected when King Charles was young. Now, we don't really know. I mean, it's a private matter. How was his relationship with Prince Philip and the Queen? How was it on a deep personal level? Um, Whatever it is, the self-worth was negatively affected with Saturn being in the second house. So he might have had a very strict upbringing. Saturn in the second house can create situations where you're always having to follow all these rules. You're supposed to be, it might seem very disciplinarian. I know that they showed, I believe he went to that school in Scotland that Prince Philip went to, and he had a very negative experience with that school. That would definitely be, with Saturn in the second house, that would confirm that. Okay. So there's a lot of negative childhood experiences with Saturn in the second house that tend to suppress the self worth. He might even have felt not fully accepted by friends and peers when he was young. Despite being the heir to the throne, he actually might have not received as much validation as you would think. Also, Saturn in the second house can make it difficult acquiring new knowledge, new traditions, even learning languages is a very difficult task for someone in with Saturn in the second house, but it can show that it's necessary for this person to learn new languages. So I believe they showed the when he learned Welsh, I believe it was, he had to put a lot of effort in trying to learn Welsh and make that speech in Welsh. Let's talk about some of the other aspects going on. Remember, there's also the aspect to the fourth house, the eighth house, and the 11th house in the chart. The aspect to the fourth house, this is going to be showing it's negatively impacting the foundations, mother figures, early education. What's interesting about Saturn in the second house is it shows that one's childhood in general might be seen through a glass darkly, so to speak. So, second house represents your family of origin, and then fourth house represents your early education, mother figures, the sense of nurturing we receive. So, it could be exceedingly difficult. Okay. There's a feeling of difficulty there. Like I said, strict teachers following a lot of rules, maybe not getting quite the validation that one would like. So, for example, the sun, if we take a look at his chart, the sun is in the fourth house. The sun represents your ego. So, when you have Saturn aspecting it, it can show that there was some form of invalidation growing up. Now, sometimes the Saturn aspect to the fourth house can show a difficult relationship with the mother, but it also can just show being separated from the mother quite often. So, I mean, if your mother is the queen, I mean, it's going to be very difficult to spend a lot of quality one-on-one personal time if your parent is a seen as a world leader, you know, because they're going to be burdened by duties. So it could also have that interpretation of just being separated from the mother quite often. But on a very basic level, it can just represent just not feeling like you got the nurturing necessarily that you wanted or needed. So there could be some sort of remember, Saturn kind of stifles the energy there. We have the aspect to the eighth house, which represents slow transformations. But the good thing about Saturn aspect in the eighth house, it does tend to give a long life, and it tends to extend the lifespan, because the eighth house represents the conditions in how we pass away. If you want to look at, for example, your chart, you want to see, okay, what are the conditions with when someone passes away? Look at the eighth house. So when Saturn's aspecting it, it's slowing down that process of death and rebirth. So we go through many cycles of death and rebirth. So, if, for example, when King Charles went through the divorce with Princess Diana, with Saturn aspecting the eighth house, it shows that it was an exceedingly difficult transition, going from the first marriage and then establishing that new identity, and then eventually getting to this new identity with Queen Camilla. It was very slow, arduous, very long process there. Also, could represent issues with in-laws in general. Now, I'm not too familiar on what King Charles's in-laws were like, but it can show difficulty, especially with the first ones from the first marriage. He's got the aspect to the 11th house. The aspect to the 11th house represents somebody, again, they tend to have few friends. If they have friends, it's a small circle of friends that are actually really close. Remember, Saturn restricts things. So even though he's king and he should have a lot of people, well, a lot of people respect him, a lot of people are going to go to the different social events with the king, he actually might feel like on a personal level he doesn't have a lot of personal friends, like people he can confide in type thing. um Also, Saturn aspecting the 11th house, it does tend to minimize the amount of network expansion that someone has. So this makes me feel like you know, being born into the royal family, you tend to be connected to the old aristocracy and things like that. And the world is rapidly changing. So when we talk about just being able to network with, say, I know they used to have this issue of like people that are born into old wealth versus people that are born in or not born in the wealth, and they're kind of like the new wealth. Well, there's this kind of like separation between cultures there. So that there could be a little bit of a gap to bridge there of just learning how to expand those networks beyond the traditional networks that he was born into. All right, let's go to this next slide, which is only one. So it's interesting. Saturn is in fifth from Moon. Let's look at that in the chart. I want to show you that. So when we get older, our moon chart starts to really the influence of your moon chart starts to strengthen quite a bit. Your moon chart is simply just where your moon is. That becomes the first house. So your ascendant sign is different. So let me show you in the chart so you can understand. So King Charles is Cancer ascendant, but his moon is in Aries. But as he gets older, especially after the age of 50, we can look at the sign of Aries, almost we can make this ascendant because it's starting to become have a stronger influence. So if we look at the moon chart, if we make this the first house, you'll notice one, two, three, four, five. You'll see Saturn, because we were talking about the Saturn karma, is in the fifth house. And if you all are familiar with the fifth house represents children. So this shows with Saturn being in the fifth house that as he gets older, over the age of 50 and so on, well, he's over the age of 50, but as he gets older, one of the main karmic issues is the relationship with his children. And so we see that especially with Prince Harry. So we see this difficulty. And so this is what's going to be causing him a lot of sleepless nights. A lot of worry is the children starts becoming more. So maybe in his early life, maybe it was more family, home, mother, those kind of things. And then as he gets older, it's more his children that's causing more heartache, so to speak. So these are some of the karmic issues that King Charles has. He's human, just like all of us. We all come into these incarnations with various challenges, and typically, what happens is uh, there tends to be actually a even slate for a lot of our karma. So if someone's born into a wealthy situation, a lot of their karmic lessons are going to be more emotional, psychological, family kind of drama, those kind of things. So there is kind of people have different life lessons. There might be people that they're born into difficult financial situations, but maybe their family life is better. So there's kind of a trade-off when we're looking at karma. A lot of times there's areas that are going to be stronger in one's chart and areas that are going to be weaker. So that's something to consider. I hope you really enjoyed the video. Let me know down below if I can do more readings on the royal family and what you would like to know. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.